Hey folks, welcome to the Evil Dungeon Master Universe podcast. I am your host, Evil Dungeon Master Vince. Hopefully you're doing well here on Friday. Right now we are here in Texas, snowed in because of all the snow that we've been getting here in Texas. So had a little bit of busy morning today as I was not able to make it into work. Had to get out there and shovel some of that snow out of the way. So we're doing well here. It's pretty much over. It'll melt away by this weekend, hopefully, and never have to see the snow again because people here in Texas don't know how to deal with snow. Ask the DM at theevildm.com is my email address where you can contact me, or theevildm.com is my website where you can sign up for the newsletter. Now, if that's out of the way, you can also, support me by going to my YouTube channel and clicking join for 99 cents a month, and you get access to videos ahead of time, or you can go to ko-fi.com/theevildm to make a donation. There. Now that's all out of the way. Anyway, today I want to talk a little bit about something that is pretty devastating when it comes to campaigns, and a lot of DMs don't use these rules. If you turn to I have to scroll down a little, page 13, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I'm talking about the one with the Dungeon Master, the revised cover edition with the Dungeon Master holding two doors open, kind of my favorite cover. I love that artwork, by the way. Anyway, turn to page 13, we're talking about disease. So let me just read a little description here and we can talk a little bit more about it. As with poisons, this system does not attempt a specific treatment of a subject which is beyond the scope of its purpose. What is done, however, is to give general categories of diseases and maladies, and their game effect, as well as a chance to contract an ailment according to the surroundings. Naturally, you will often have no need for any random determination of disease, as the affliction will be specified. But even then, you will have to find out that random determinants for occurrence and severity might be helpful. So it's kind of a general overall description of diseases, and why I'm saying this here and talking about this is because not only is there a chance of having like an evil cleric that you're going up against, or a monster that has a disease like a mummy with mummy rot or something like that, but you can contract a disease or a parasite infection just by living. Now, Gary has some rules here that each game month, you may wish to check at each character to determine whether or not he or she has contracted a disease or disorder. Now, it says you may wish. You don't have to do this, but you may wish to do this. I don't think I've ever met any DM that actually used these rules, myself included, because there's enough stuff to really worry about, but if you're one of those DMs that really want to do it, you can. It's in the book, and you're allowed to do it. Again, books are guidelines, so this is one of the guidelines. Back to what it is. Check each week if the conditions are particularly favorable. So it's now telling you a game month, but now it's saying you could check each week. So if it's very hot weather or really hot, moist weather, filthy, crowded conditions and warm weather, check each and every time the character is exposed to a carrier in a way which would allow the disease to be communicated. Note that disease characters can be human, it could be animal, it could be an insect, it could be food, it could be drink, it could be vermin, it could be dirt, filth, etc. As a DM, you must indicate any special disease circumstances applicable. Now, okay, that's just disease. Now there's a parasite you have to worry about too. Each month, again, check for the determination of he or she has become infested with some type of parasite. Each week, if the conditions are particularly favorable, filthy and warm temperature, hot, moist weather, check each and every time the character is exposed to carriers of this one is a little bit different: human, animal, dust, earth, manure, raw or undercooked meat, and swamp water. Checks are made by using the appropriate tables shown hereafter. So you could skip the disease thing for now, but what I'm saying is you can give someone a parasite in the game as a DM if they go into a hot climate zone or a filthy tavern with moist weather or something and have one of those cooks that's just not doing his job that day at the tavern. There's a chance he might undercook something, or maybe, give you something that's raw and not really, done well. So you can get a parasite from some type of exotic meat that they're serving there. So the base chance is not really that high, but there's still a chance because you have a percentile chance. Base chance is just 2. And there's some modifiers. Currently diseased or infested. If the area is crowded, it's filthy, all those you have to add a plus 1%. If the character is old, you add another 2%. The environment itself, such as if it's marsh or swamp or jungle, you add 2%. If it's a hot and moist season or region, you add another 2%. If the character is venerable by whatever reason, magic or otherwise, you add 5%. If the person is exposed to a carrier of a communicable disease and somehow interacts with them, you get 10% for that. Now, there's also negatives too. So if there's cool weather or climates, like a high elevation, you'll get a -1. Cold weather in high mountains itself will give you -2. Shipboard after being at sea for 2 weeks, -2. So you adjust the base chance of disease by contracting by applying modifiers. When the final percentage chance to contract the disease is found, roll for each character concerned. If the disease is indicated, go to the disease table below to determine what sort is contracted. So when you go to the table below, there is a table just to tell you what type of disease it is as far as chronic or acute. Now, parasite starts at a 3% chance and can add anywhere from between 1 and 5% depending on where it is, and -1 for anything else. You definitely will have to check the next table on the next page because it tells you what type of disease or table area by. There's a giant table here. You roll your percentile after you discover that they're affected, and you do what type of body area is affected. It can go from anywhere from blood-forming organs, bones, brain, nervous system, cardiovascular, renal, connective tissue, ears, eyes, gastrointestinal, generative organs, joints, musculars, membranes, muscles, nose, sore throat, respiratory, skin, and urinary system. After you do that, you have to decide, and this is just for disease, decide if it's an acute disease or a chronic reoccurring disease, and you roll a D8 for that. And then after that, you have to roll on the severity if it's a mild, severe, terminal disease to do that. Now, parasitic infestations have a similar chart, but it's a little bit smaller of a percentile chart. It only has cardiovascular, intestines, muscle, respiratory, skin, hair, and stomach. And there is no a chronic or acute because once you get a parasite, you get a parasite. It's not like a acute parasite. It's going to be like, all right, bye, goodbye. No, or a chronic one that's going to keep returning. Once you get rid of it, it gets gone. But it's a D8 roll again, and mild, severe, terminal. So the severity refers to the seriousness of the disease or disorder or the parasitic infection, determines the period of disability, recovery time, or length of the illness which terminates in the character's demise. And just remember that because there's a paragraph I have to read towards the end which tell you something about that as well. So the mild seriousness is during the period of affliction the character is unable to perform strenuous activities and must rest. Some treatment must be determined by the DM to allow a shortening of the period of illness, normally a period of 1 to 3 weeks. So, I mean, you could maybe bed rest or maybe take some herbs or something and you can get rid of it. Severe will lower the character's hit points by 50% of the normal and make him or her totally disabled for 1 to 2 weeks, plus further 1 to 2 weeks of time during which the melody is in a mild state as the character recovers. So it'll go from a severe to mild down to nothing. Terminal will cause death or the loss of body part function in 1 to 12 days. Longer periods are stated hereafter in the discussion in various melodies. Yeah. So, and it goes over the various types of like blood, bone, brain, cardiovascular, connective tissue, all the way down to urinary system. And it tells you the chance of something to happen of losing attribute points at that too. There's only a certain, like, urinary system disorder, so of chronic, severe nature, are 20% likely to cause a loss of 1 point of dexterity and 1 point of constitution per occurrence. Terminal cases will take 1 to 12 weeks. Now, you can lose various things doing this, but I know I said there was a D8 for severity, but there's a chart here on the bottom that says adjustments to occurrence and severity die rolls. And you don't use this for parasitic infections, only for diseases. Now, if your constitution is under 3, you're going to get a bonus to that D8 roll. I shouldn't say a bonus. It's really a negative because it makes the number higher at a +2. Constitution 3 to 5 +1, all the way up to, +1 for if your hit points are 25% of the normal hit point total at the current time. Now, if your constitution is 10 to 12, it's -1 on the die, which is your favor. Up to 15, -2, 17, -3, and constitution 4, -4. So if you have an 18 constitution and I'm rolling this die for you and it's a 4, your chances will probably be acute with a very minor chance of it being chronic. Or, I believe, it's also for severity too. So it could be, 3, anyway, as high as severe and mild. That's it. It won't be terminal due to you having a giant constitution there. So it's something to really think about. And the one thing I wanted to read that was was interesting was because I talked about how you can have it could kill you, but so death due to disease or disorder or parasitic infection, which you can die because if it's terminal, that'll happen to you. Any character brought back from such state will suffer the ravages of the disease or infestation, permanent losses and abilities, for example, until magically countered. So if you die from the parasitic infection or disease, you think it would just go away. No, you're still affected by it. And furthermore, such a character will be 90% likely to, scroll up, still be suffering from the cause of the death unless a curative is used. Even then, the character will have to spend time recovering as if from a severe illness. Ability losses which have been permanently sustained will not be corrected by the curative of any sort, including a cure disease spell. Magical correction wishes, alter reality spells, magical devices will certainly correct these deficiencies. So, diseases and parasites are something that you can use in your game, depending on your setting, and if you really want to do that. And you could do it up to like 4 times in a month, depending on the situation. If you have a campaign that revolves around there is a current disease going around, then you can use these charts to determine how often the player characters are exposed to it and get that disease that's running around. You can predetermine what it is and what its abilities on the chart are, but I would save the occurrence and severity to when the person actually contracts that disease or a parasitic infection because of the severity. I would think a parasitic infection would happen more often than a chronic occurrence of diseases or acute diseases because it's not that often you're going to run into a lot of diseases, but hey, you never know. I mean, he's basing this off medieval times, and a lot of the conditions were very poor, so a lot of people died of various diseases and parasitic infections. So this table might be something to use. It's something to maybe get a little bit more realism in the game if you want that whole gritty, realistic D&D setting going there with the possibility of your character just dying because of the situation in the area they're running through or they were born in and adventuring through. That's how a lot of people died, and he was trying to progress this through the game for you. Again, this is just a guideline, and you don't have to use it. It's as if you may wish. This is one of the only times that I've seen that Gary is telling you you really don't have to do it, but if you wish, here it is. Normally, in most of his writings, it's like, this is what will happen. This is what you'll do. But this is if you want, if you wish, go ahead, go for it. I think this is a good way to add a little bit more fear into the campaign if you're going to have things like this. Maybe use the parasitic infection one a little bit more often than the disease. I think the disease is kind of crappy, but hey, if that's the type of DM you want to be and you want to add a little realism to your game, by all means, go for it. And this is right here on page 13 and 14 of the book, Dungeon Master's Guide. Tell me what you think about disease and parasitic infections in your campaign. Do you use these rules? I mean, I never really used them because I never paid attention to them, not really realizing that when you're playing a game like D&D, you're going to run into these things based on the area, especially a high-populated, poor area. There's a chance that the disease is running around or a parasitic infection is going to be in your food because of poorly mistreated conditions and storage of food. Remember, they didn't store food all that well. It's not like modern day when it's in the fridge and checked by various FDA crap and everything. Back then, it was just, they had a slab of meat, threw it in the bucket, and they brought it over to the tavern who stored it in various other buckets with other food that had been sitting there for a while. They may have flies on it and things like that. You have to think about that. You don't have to do these things, and you don't have to think about it. But if you want to add that kind of realism into the game, well, here you go. Go for it. Again, tell me what you think in the comments, either on Spotify or on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/EvilDM, and or on my blog, theevildm.com, because usually when I put these up, I do a little write-up with it, some thoughts as well, some highlights, and you can comment there easily, signing up for Substack. Anyway, I'm going to head out. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, and God bless everybody. Keep those AD&D fires lit.